Composition, production,
Yeah.
sound design, experimentation in that way. I do perform a lot of stuff on my own scores, but really what I am is, I mean, I consider myself a filmmaker whose primary craft is music. That's the way I look at myself.
Okay.
I'm a filmmaker. My main interest, my main goal is to master the art of filmmaking from the perspective of my involvement as a musician.
All right, talk to me about that, because that's a very specific way to look at it's a strange sort of twist on what music would normally be for most people.
Absolutely.
So talk to me about that journey.
So that really started in Germany again and that's also where the performance part of it came. I would listen to music and I would get visuals in my head. I knew exactly what was going on, and I would get costumes and act these things out. So what ended up happening is that sort of just carried over that idea, or that interest in storytelling, and that love of music, and that the fact that music gave me such strong visual images, and that it brought up this story. I could tell you what the beginning, middle, and end of every story was by listening to these pieces, and they were classical pieces because that's what I had access to and I loved. But the whole idea of what a film composer is and does didn't occur to me. Until I was much later in life.
It's pretty young for you to even
it's a vocation, yeah. So I had no access to that. So, I was going down the path of being an artist, but I also started to, when we were talking about getting into the guitar, started playing in bands, and then it was by the time the end of high school, I was like, I want to be a rock star. But I'm also going to do my safe plan B, which is go to post-secondary for illustration, which is a crazy plan B. Anyway, so I ended up going to college. I met another guy during that time, and we ended up forming this band that we were in for about 6 years, and ended up in Vancouver.
What was the band called?
Unheard. It was a self-fulfilling prophecy. So, and then we ended up in Toronto, and that was sort of when the band disbanded. And at that point, I was really like, wow, that was sort of my... I was sort of disenchanted, I guess, more than anything, with the whole idea of what it meant to be in a band, and all this, the crap outweighed the fun by a large degree for me at that point. I was just like, you know what, I'm not interested in this money. And it was so there's also a part of me that's really doesn't like being in a situation where you're promoting yourself purely, right?
Right.
Just going, check out me and my band, and we're called Ball, and come to our show. I'm just like, oh God, no. So I was working a dead-end job, and I just sort of was searching around and looking what could I do next. I tried graphic design. I got a business going for graphic design. I hated every second of it.
Right.
And realized, wow, this whole thing that I was kind of banking on being my career is not a viable thing, because I do not like doing it. I don't like the client work. I didn't like any of it. So, long story long, I ended up finding a book called The Real World by Jeff Rona, and that described the process of being a film composer. And it occurred to me, okay, here's a place where I can be a storyteller, where I can engage my love of visual media and visuals, and where I can practice music and produce music on my own and use all this wonderful technology to create these soundscapes that help tell a story.
Don't forget, you can subscribe to our full audio episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere you find your audio podcasts. The full episodes, highlights, and our live off-the-floor performance videos can be found at our YouTube channel, and you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at the AVB Podcast. Of course, you'll find links to our incredible sponsors and this week's guest in the description below. The AVB Podcast is part of the Border City Network. Find more great content at bordercitynetwork.com. See you next time, folks. Bye-bye.